guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and in today's video I want to talk about some inconsistencies with the new Artak multiplier champions, which is very important, and I want to raise a very important question that hopefully the developers at Teleria are going to be able to provide an answer to. Now, I am not a part of the content creator program. Obviously, Hell Hades is. He's kind of asked this question. He's fed back to me a few things because I've raised it with him and I've said, hey, can you check? Because there was a bit of aftermath with the Razzlevarg where, to be honest, maybe I should have given them the benefit of the doubt that it was a mistake before I released the video. If I was part of the content creator program, maybe I would have thought differently and approached it differently. It's a whole nother conversation. But the main point I want to point out here is I did check with Hell Hades first. He's checked it and they're pretty happy with everything that's going on here from what they've told him. But essentially, there is an inconsistency with the way that Artak is coded versus a well-known bard in this game that is considered to be incredibly OP. Now, just before we get into that video, I want to make a shout out to the Raid Digest that came out yesterday, where they have confirmed that the issue that we discovered, that certain champions with certain effects had the ability to proc multiple times on the provokes, the toxics, the stun sets, they're going to bug fix that. So they've acknowledged that that was a bug, an unintended consequence of the way that the game was coded, and they plan to fix it. Now, I don't have a problem with this change. I apologize to the community if this is going to mess up any of your teams, and you know, this is the consequence of us discovering these things. Maybe I caused it, maybe I shouldn't have told everyone. It's all in the air. The main thing you need to kind of take away from this is clearly Teleria have decided that multi-hit abilities shouldn't have multiple roles on those artifact sets, and they've taken steps to fix basically the few champions where that did not happen. So, okay, fine. We take that and we go, that's consistency. What we want to make sure is if something is meant to happen a specific way, it's happening consistently. That's the most important thing. It happens fairly. That's what I want you to take away from this. We will have a video where I'll talk about the consequences of those changes. I'll probably put that out next week where we talk about exactly what that means for certain champions. Should you change your game style? Are there specific champions now that no longer work because of it? We'll have a discussion around that. The thing I wanted to point out here was Teleria are telling us that the way that it's meant to work needs to work consistently across all multi-hit champions. That multi-hit champions shouldn't have multiple chances to roll toxic and provoke set. That's the consequence of that. That is the principle. So we're going to use that principle in this video because the way that Artak is coded is inconsistent. Now, if you don't know how maximum HP destruction and damage works, if you have a champion that is based on HP damage, such as Artak here, you can see all of his abilities on screen, the damage is based on HP. If they lose HP, it affects their damage because essentially this damage is calculated at the point of using the skill on their current maximum HP. So if I didn't put any gear on Artak, it would be whatever the multiplier is, which on the A1 it happens to be 0.1, 22,000 times 0.1 is the raw damage, which we then multiply crit damage, books, and weaken, and all the other effects in the game that have an impact on damage, right? Your masteries, all these other things, but the base number is important. Now, what happens when you lose max HP, when it gets destroyed by the Head of Decay, or in this instance by the champion's own abilities, is you reduce the damage output. So what does that actually mean? Well, it basically means that if he loses 50% of his HP, he's essentially under a decrease HP debuff. When you have an attack-based champion, you put decreased attack on him, essentially you reduce half his damage, right? Is a big factor. We know that decreased attack on the clan boss is very powerful. So it's acceptable that that is the case. As a principle, if they wanted to have HP destruction as a method of reducing HP damage, I'm happy with that. I would say it shouldn't go any lower than 50%, and there are inconsistencies in the code where destroy artifact set can only go to 40%, life harvest the life harvest blessing could go to 60%, the decay head caps at 25%, certain other champions drop to like 0%, like if you do it in the Sand Devil, Geomancer drops to 0%. It probably should have a bit of a consistency check, as we've done with the artifact sets. But essentially, I'm okay with the concept that, you know, there's no decreased HP debuff, but there is a method for you to reduce HP-based champions' damage because there are some very big hitters, Magna, Taras, Vasulf. There are some hard-hitting HP champions that you would want to counter by doing that. Now, the problem that we've got here is inconsistency. So because Artak is not based on, is based that way, he obviously has a mechanic. If you've not watched any videos by now, what are you doing? Go check it out. You know, call the arbiters out, get all hyped, whoop. He has this thing where he restores this champion's destroyed max HP by 10%. So you're thinking, oh, well, why is he restoring it? Because every time a burn is activated on an enemy, he destroys his own HP by 5%. Now, in a situation where you're in Spider 20 or Spider 25 or Spider 10 hard, you're going to activate 11 or at least 10 burns. You won't activate 11 in Spider hard because obviously the boss is immune to burns, but the Spiderlings are not. And there's 10 Spiderlings normally. So pretty much if you activate a burn in Spider, he's losing half his HP. If you're doing it in Ice Golem, okay, it's only 5%. So as long as you can get back around to this, you can restore it. But pretty much you're probably going to be near enough at 50% HP for a lot of the fight. Some people have also argued that maybe it's better to be at 50%, right? Why? Because you get this cool passive where he increases his own damage, crit damage, and defense for each 1% of his lost HP. He also increases his speed and resistance. Now, the speed and resistance is really valuable because you can go an extra 100 speed and have 100 more resistance when you're at 50% HP. And because he's HP based, you can afford to lose 50% of your HP because you're going to get 50% defense back. So if you get him to like 3,000 defense or 2,500 defense, then he's going to be near 4,000 to 5,000 defense. You know, it's a lot of defense. You put increased defense on him, he's probably going to be very tanky even with 40,000 HP. So ideally you'd want to leave him down there so he gets the speed and resistance. And you would think of this and go, wow, 50% crit damage, 50% actual damage. And by the way, the crit damage is multiplicative. So it's 1 times whatever the crit damage is. So it would be, for example, if you've got 200% crit damage, it would be 200% times 1.5, which is 300%, not 50% extra additive like the buff. It's actually multiplicative. That means you'd think, oh, that's a lot of damage. Well, here comes the inconsistency. Because he's based on HP, not his maximum HP, so it's based on his HP at the time in which he casts the skill, essentially this passive for damage is meaningless. Now again, I would be okay with this if this was a consistent principle. Now let me just do some math before we go into where it is inconsistent. So what I've got here is an assessment of the way that multipliers work. So I'm going to assume that I've got an Artak with 75,000 HP and crit damage of 200%. Now the crit damage being multiplicative means how much base crit damage you have is relevant, because the more crit damage you have, the more you can multiply, the more the passive will gain crit damage, right? It'll increase. But let's just start at 200%. Now, I've got the multipliers mapped here. Obviously, all of them are AoE, but the A3 is a double hit, so I've just doubled the multiplier, so we can see how much damage you would do. So if we were basing it on his current setup, where the multipliers are based on HP, not on B_HP. I'll explain what B_HP means in a second, but based on HP, that means he's losing max HP on his damage. Well, you can see at 100%, he would do 22,500 on the A1, 56,250, and 63,000 on the A3. This is before any sort of bonus additional multipliers, damage mitigation. There's lots of different factors. This is just a simple math calculation. All those other multipliers tend to be multiplicative, so they'll just reduce it down rather than, it'll be just a different calculation. But it doesn't really matter for the assessment here in terms of the damage gain or the damage loss. Now, if we were to go to 25% damage reduction, HP reduction, so basically we've lost 25% of our max HP. Well, you can see we've kicked the passive in here to start calculating 25% bonus crit damage, 25% bonus raw physical damage, raw actual on-hit damage. And we actually gain a little bit of damage here. We gain 9%. So even though we've lost max HP, we're still gaining a little bit more damage. That's cool. It doesn't really scream I'm getting 25% more raw damage and 25% more critical damage, because essentially you're losing 25% of your base multiplier. So it's trying to balance out the mitigation. So you're still gaining, you're just not gaining what the game feels like you should gain. But the more telling thing is when you get to 50% HP here, you actually gain nothing. The passive is just nullifying the impact of lost HP. So you gain no damage. So that passive when it says you gain 50% damage and you gain 50% crit damage is meaningless. It's just nullifying the loss of max HP, which you could say, okay, well, that's not a problem because I'm still gaining 50% defense. I'm still gaining speed and resistance. Sure. But at the same time, I'm like, that's just silly. Why is it like that? Now, if I was to change this to 250% crit damage, you can see you gain a little bit more. Why? Because it's multiplicative. The more crit damage you have, the more crit damage you can gain from that 50% on the passive. So that will be a big factor in terms of how the damage is calculated. Now, the important thing here is there is one champion in the game when his maximum HP is destroyed doesn't suffer a penalty like every other HP-based champion. This is the argument that I'm going to have here about consistency. This is inconsistent with the way that all other HP-based champions work. And that champion is Taras the Fierce. So by now, everyone knows that Taras the Fierce is one of the most OP champions in Live Arena. He's one of the most OP champions in the game because of this ability here, where he will increase his damage by 15% for every buff on every ally. It's like Seer, but stronger to some extent in the right settings, because it's not based on enemy max HP, so you can bypass a lot of the passives on bosses. And in PvP, you can just stack 6 buffs on all allies and he'll just one-shot any team. It doesn't really matter what kind of build he's in. As long as he's got crit damage, he'll kill people. So again, we're looking at the differences here. It still says damage is based on HP. You know, he's got this passive where when he gets attacked, he'll lose his own max HP. It's less aggressive than Artak, because Artak is physically going to force his max HP down by using his abilities, whereas Taras the Fierce here requires people to attack him. If he doesn't get attacked, he doesn't lose max HP. If you attack him, he loses max HP. So to some extent, you could counter him by going, okay, well, if I attack him a lot, I'll destroy his max HP. And until he gets back around to his A3, where he heals this and restores decreased max HP equal to the amount of any surplus heal, that's done after he's done damage, by the way, so that would be a reasonable counter to him to reduce his damage. This is not what happens, because Taras the Fierce is the only HP-based champion in the game that is based on B_HP, which is translated to the HP that I have when I enter the battle, which means there is no way for you to nerf or reduce his damage in battle. It is inconsistent to the way that all other HP champions deal damage, because all of the other HP champions, you destroy their max HP, you destroy their damage. With Taras, you don't at all. So what kind of impact would that have on Artak? Well, the one I've got up here, you can see the difference. So if we basically did exactly the same math, but instead now we're not actually taking the maximum HP, we're using B_HP, so we're not losing max HP, well, you can see actually that puts him on a very good stat. You actually feel like his passive is going to give him a lot of damage. We get 46% at 75% HP, and we get 100% at 50% HP. Now, play devil's advocate here. Maybe you go, well, that's just way too strong for a free login champion. Okay, take the damage component away. Just let him do B_HP, because you're punishing him in damage for using his skills. Just don't have the bonus 50% damage. If we just take that away and we were to just say, okay, instead all he gets is, let's just say all he got was the bonus crit damage. Well, he'd only gain 33% more damage. That's okay to me, because basically the more you lose HP, you get a little bit more damage. You're kind of supplementing the riskiness of losing a lot of your HP that makes you squishier, but you're still pumping damage. If you want, you could even take away the crit damage. I think it's still fine to basically have 100 speed, 100 resistance, and 50% defense as a passive for losing max HP. But the way that they've coded it means that essentially you've got a passive that adds damage that doesn't do anything, and it's inconsistent to the way that the way that other HP-based champions work with Taras, because he's coded exactly the way that all other HP-based. So my question to Plarium, to the world, is why is Taras so special that he gets a completely different multiplier to every other HP-based champion? Why? Now, a cynic in me would go, he's Void Legendary, want to sell shards. That's a fair argument. But everyone right now is going, Taras and Marichka are so strong. Now, if we have just bug fixed all those artifact sets for all those champions like Mighty Uko used to get double stun chance because it was not working consistently, why is there one HP-based champion in the game that does a different multiplier than any other HP-based champion in the game? Why? Now, when this first came out, I assumed the reason why they did it was because he had a mechanic in which he destroyed his max HP, and this was a new thing going forward. There are not that many champions that actually destroy their own max HP, so I just thought this is the principle for, okay, when a champion destroys their max HP, they have a method of avoiding it by using that B_HP. But now that they've added an actual champion here in Artak that I would argue does it more aggressively, because he physically will destroy his own HP by doing an ability, so he's actually doing it to himself, well, we haven't applied it there. So that kind of is not the case. So my as I said, my question is, why is Taras coded differently? It shouldn't be. We've already set a precedent now with the artifact sets that consistency is important, that if we've said a precedent needs to happen and then we've got some bug in the game or some inconsistencies, we fix it. I think Taras needs to be fixed. Taras should be based on his current max HP, not his HP when he enters battle. He's still going to be adequately strong. This is still going to be strong because even if he's at max HP, it's still going to hit hard. But at least you've got consistency in code, and it also keeps it so you have an alternative solution to actually counter Taras by attacking him and reducing his maximum HP. So there you go, guys. That is a technical kind of video. I wanted to raise the issue because I don't have the avenue to contact Plarium directly on this, and clearly they are watching my videos. Sorry about the artifact sets, guys, but it's good. It's important. I think consistency for me is the most important thing. I don't really care whether they, even if they come back in and go, do you know what? Artak should be base underscore HP or B underscore HP as well, and we take away the damage component. I'd be happy with that because it's consistent. It's good. Now, some might argue, well, what does it really matter if the damage and crit damage just basically matches it up? Well, what's the point of having it? You've added complexity to a champion for no reason whatsoever. Just make it so that his abilities were B underscore HP and add consistency. If a champion destroys his max HP and his damage is based off HP, it should be B underscore HP. Let me know in the comments below, guys, what you think about this. I would like to see some consistency here. I just think it makes sense. And if you've liked this kind of video, I do try to make sure that I'm not like making the things bad for the community. I know a lot of people will probably be pretty unhappy with me that I raised the artifact set issue, but hey, I guess it was a bug. It is what it is. Sometimes we win on this channel, sometimes we lose on this channel. But if you do like this content, please give our channel a subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. And any future video we do will go straight into your feed. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.